Oh man, I'm super stoked to show you guys this one today. Today I'm back at Motorcar Portfolio to take a closer look at this totally hand-built, exclusive 1956 Continental Mark II. But before we take the tour, if you just stumbled upon this channel, man, you hit a gold mine. We focus on orphan cars on this channel and cars that are off the beaten path. Yes, Mustang, Camaros, and Firebirds are cool, but there's so much more to the car hobby than those three cars. If you're into weird, unusual cars that don't get reviewed often, this channel is for you. And I would invite you to hit that subscribe button. Also, if you like the content, hit the like button so other people can see it too. Okay, let's talk Continental. Notice I didn't say Lincoln Continental, just Continental. Ford wanted to make 5 brands, including another brand that they were going to come out a little bit later called Edsel, so it could go toe-to-toe with GM and Chrysler, which both companies had 5 brands under their umbrella. Okay, to hammer my point home, I'm going to lay out what brands GM had under their umbrella, what brands Chrysler had under their umbrella, and what brands Ford had under their umbrella. Not going to get into the independents or the smaller companies, but GM had Cadillac, Buick, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Chevy. Chrysler had Imperial, Chrysler, DeSoto, Plymouth, Dodge, and Ford had Ford, Mercury, and Lincoln. They wanted to make 2 more brands to go toe-to-toe with GM and Chrysler, who had 5 brands. Unfortunately for Ford, this dream never became a reality. They never had 5 brands under their umbrella. Continental would actually go back to Lincoln in 1958, the year that Edsel debuted. Ford only had 4 against 5. But in 61, Chrysler dropped DeSoto brand because there was too many makes offered in the same price field. GM was somehow able to keep up the charade, meaning they were able to keep all of their 5 brands until the early 2000s when they had to drop Oldsmobile. Not long after, they had to drop Pontiac. The irony of all of this is Ford doesn't have Mercury anymore. They don't have their 3 anymore, but all the other ones, like Chrysler, took a major hit. They don't have Imperial anymore. There's no DeSoto or Plymouth. On the Chrysler end, they only have the Chrysler and Dodge. They also have Jeep. GM has Cadillac, Buick, and Chevy. And Ford has Ford and Lincoln. That's ironic. Okay, back to the Continental Mark II. The Continental Mark II was an ultra-luxury, worldwide flagship/halo car for Ford Motor Company. It was the most expensive car in America in 1956. This is the only car Continental ever produced by themselves. In other words, Lincoln was always associated with the Continental name, but not for 56 and 57. Continental was the most prestigious car Ford Motor Company offered. It was so prestigious that it was marketed against the Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. Wait, how much did the Continental Mark II cost? Well, it cost $9,966, which is adjusted for inflation, would be equivalent to you going down and purchasing a car for $105,000, $340.62. The only option that you could get was air conditioning, which pushed the price tag past the $10,000 mark. Just to put things into perspective, gas was 22 cents a gallon. A loaf of bread was 18 cents a gallon. A new house was between an average new house. Now, it depends on where you buy it and how much acreage you get and yada, yada, yada. But a new house on average was between $11,700 and $22,000. The Continental Mark II costs as much as a new house. Here's a list of people who bought the Continental Mark II brand new. Barry Goldwater, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Frank Sinatra, Liz Taylor. As mentioned previous, the only option one could get when purchasing the Continental Mark II was air conditioning, which was a $595 option, which is equivalent to you spending $6,000 on an option now. But it came standard with power windows. All of the windows are powered. Rear quarter windows as well as the vent windows, so you have 6 buttons for power windows. 6 windows are powered. That's crazy. Power brakes, power steering, dual heaters, the finest leathers and fabrics available, power seats. Ford claimed they lost $1,000 on every single Continental Mark II that was built, and a total of 3,005 were produced. I just want to stop right there and say it was ultra exclusive, ultra expensive, but it isn't ultra rare. They made more of these than they made Ferrari F40s, and they made more of these than they made Edsel Citation convertibles. They're out there. If you want one, you can find one. Okay, let's talk about some Lincoln Continental Mark II specs. It rides a 120-inch wheelbase. It is 218 inches long, 77.5 inches wide, 56.3 inches tall, weighs 5,000 pounds. 0 to 60 is 16 seconds. The top speed's anywhere between 118 miles an hour and 120 miles per hour. All right, let's talk about the engine. It's a 368 cubic inch displacement Y-block V8. In 1956, it made 285 horsepower. In 1957, it makes 300 horsepower and 415 foot-pounds of torque. It is mated to a turbo drive 3-speed automatic. In the comments section, in your opinion, what was the best Y-block Ford made? So one might ask the question, why was the Continental Mark II so expensive? It's not as flashy as, say, a Cadillac BIARRITZ. It's very stately, very formal type car, but it doesn't have any fins. It doesn't have a whole lot of chrome. It's not two-toned. You couldn't get it two-toned from the factory. You could do it after the fact if you wanted to, but it was made of the best quality materials at the time. Each car had 4 coats of hand-sanded lacquer. The exterior trim was triple-plated, copper, nickel, and chromium. Today it's just called show chrome. Fun fact, when the Continental Mark II was shipped, it was shipped in a fleece-lined plastic canvas envelopes to protect the finish. The Continental Mark II was designed by 2 guys, Gordon Brigg. I apologize if I said his name wrong. He also designed the Cord 810. It was known as the Coffin Cord, also front-wheel drive. It kind of ties into the Tucker episode. And John Reinhardt, who designed the 51 Packard line.
It would be impossible to say just what day or what hour this new car was actually born, because it came to life a little at a time, during the intensive effort of 2 years. But as good a day as any was December 24, 1954, the day before Christmas. The handmade prototype was at last ready for its trial run. There came the instant when the wheels turned under power for the first time. Everything that had gone before was preparation. This was the beginning for Continental Mark II. Of course, there was a tremendous amount of work to do yet before it could be manufactured on an assembly line. It would have to go through a complete and tough test pattern. Check its performance in desert heat. And under winter conditions that were more severe than any place on Earth. It ran for weeks on durability runs without ever stopping except for gas and oil. And in a blackout disguise, it traveled from coast to coast before final approval was given. And it was checked again and again for style. Photographed and rephotographed against all kinds of backgrounds. For engineers and stylists knew that in creating this new car, they had also created a new personality in a family of automobiles.
All right, getting inside the 56 Continental Mark II. All right, just wanted to show you this door. Just notice all the bright work. It's all stuff that you won't see, but notice all the chrome on the door jambs. All inside there. So this is an ashtray for the rear passengers. There's an ashtray for the rear passengers on the other door as well. It's like a plastic vinyl material on top. Then it goes to like a leather / vinyl material. It's probably leather leather material there. Just notice all the bright work, especially down here. Moving up to the control panel here. These two switches operate the power seats. Then there's two. So this operates the vent window. Just notice how that's all trimmed out like that. So there's legitly 4 switches. So these are for the vent windows, side / passenger side windows, and these are for the 2 quarter. This is the door handle to get out. It's very unique. I found another storage cubby. I'm not entirely sure if that's an ashtray or what that's for, but it doesn't really serve a purpose when the door's closed. You can't really access it. Here, I'll show you. So the door's shut. Notice that part is all the way up in there. That would be kind of hard to access it. Look at how small these mirrors are, and they're just mounted right there. Alright, this is what I look like behind the wheel. Lots of headroom. Steering wheel, there's lots of space underneath the steering wheel. The way you feel in this car is it feels like it comes around you. It's a huge car, but it doesn't feel as big on the inside. Up here, sunshades. You do get a vanity mirror with the passenger side, but not with the driver's side. There's a nice dome light in the rear. There's a coat hook in the back. Okay, moving on to all the button switches and knobs. Question: to me, this dashboard looks like it was added after the fact, like the gauges on top of the dashboard itself. What do you guys think in the comment section below? 4 pods sit in front of the driver, starting with the very first pod on the left-hand side. Actually has 4 gauges in it. At the top is the fuel gauge in a clockwise motion, oil pressure, amps, and temperature. Moving to the right directly in front of the driver is the speedometer. It also has a tripometer and an odometer, as well as a light for the high beams inside of there. Moving back to check out the drive select modes, they are park, reverse, drive, and low. Mounted at the top of the dashboard is a dealer installed vacuum pressure gauge, which we'll get to why that's installed in a little bit. Moving back to the instrument panel, right next to the speedometer is a clock, and right next to the clock is the RPM gauge or tachometer. Okay, moving just below the instrument panel, wipers, lighter, ignition, volume setting for the town and country radio, and then on the other side of the radio is the channel selector. I totally forgot to shoot where the headlight switch is. It's located on the other side, on the left-hand side, right underneath where the speedometer is. Right below the town and country radio, just above the floor, there's a series of levers. Going from left to right, the first lever controls air. Next one's the blower, temperature, defrost, and air for the passengers. This had a very crude dual climate control, I believe. If I'm wrong, in the comment section below. It came with dual heaters, so I would assume so the passenger could put heat on if he or she wanted to, and vice versa. So this is where the exhaust would port out. One on each side, dual exhaust. Here, just check this out. So this is where the gas goes. It's a really cool spot for the gas. There we go. Just like that. So getting in underneath the trunk back here, just check out this massive trunk. It's absolutely huge. Bumper jack over there. Spare tire is right underneath the spare tire bulge. Coming back here, this one's the only one that opens. It has a handle on it, whereas the one over here doesn't. But I just love how this car looks. Okay, I saved the best for last. Underneath the hood of this Continental Mark II, it's equipped with a dealership installed supercharger. According to the owner, there was only 3 that were made with a dealership installed supercharger. I couldn't find any information on the dealership supercharger. All I know is this was owned by a captain of the Navy. That's who bought it new, and it has a dealership supercharger. I have no idea how much power they put out. If anybody has any information about that, in the comments section below, because I couldn't find anything on the supercharged cars. All right, on to the pros and cons. All the pros and cons I'm getting out of the complete book of collectible cars, blue chip auto investments from 1930 to 2000. For the pros, a famous post-war car, timeless, elegant styling, high quality materials, strong club support. Against it, not nearly as, it's a double negative, so it's hard to say. It's not nearly as elegant to drive as it is to look at. Interior is rather plain for the class of car, high operating and running costs. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this content, hit the like button so more people can see these videos. Also, share the content with everybody that you know that likes classic vintage cars that are off the beaten path, so we could grow this channel so more people can see it, so we have more opportunities to shoot rarer, more unique cars. But until next time, toodaloo!